Hi everybody, how you doing? I'm really excited because, well, it's Monday. Let's make Monday sexy, shall we? I'm very excited because Dr. Shefali is joining me shortly. I did a podcast with her the other day. She's fabulous, and she wrote a book called A Radical Awakening. Kristen join. I wait. Hi everyone. And then there'll be questions, like you guys can ask questions, but her book is great and you guys just have questions. Hi everybody, this is fun. I miss all of you. Izzy, you wrote an article about me. That's so nice. I want to read it. Send to me. Hi Katrina, I miss you. Tay did my hair. Not today, but he cuts it. Hi Tay, thank you. So yeah, we're waiting for Dr. Shefali. If anyone has any questions though, we're going to be talking about her book, A Radical Awakening. We're going to be talking about a lot of the differences frustrations that you might be experiencing in your relationship right now. Is that Dr. Shefali sent a request? Oh, there she is. Let's find her. Where did it go? Hold on, did you see that? It says there's a lot of people that are requesting Dr. Shefali. There she is. I'm so glad you liked the masterclass. That was fun, you guys. Check out masterclass if you haven't yet and you just want like your beginner course on sex. Hi, Dr. Shefali.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm excited to be here. I do need to rush out in 25-ish minutes. Is that okay? Okay, let's do this.
25 minutes is great. Everybody, welcome Dr. Shefali. We were just talking about you. We recorded a podcast the other day, which is coming out on Friday, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear that. And we talk about your book, A Radical Awakening, Turn Your Pain into Power, Embrace Your Truth, Live Free. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Shefali.
Thank you. We're talking about this book.
That's her book, everybody. I have it on my iPad, so I have all the notes in it and stuff. It's a fabulous book. And people can tune into the podcast on Friday where we cover a lot, but there's some things I just thought we could talk about right now, and we can take people's questions shortly. But your book, a lot of your book, you talk about the difference between, that we need to understand the difference between biology versus culture and the importance of understanding that difference when it comes to our sexuality. So can we talk more about that? What do we not understand that's giving us so much headaches in our relationships?
We're not understanding that we are wired for sexual pleasure, and males and females have different libidos, and a male who is wired to look and to hunt and to be satisfied continually is not just doing it because he's a pervert, but because he's wired for that. I'm not talking about violence. I'm not talking about rape. Okay, I'm just talking regular guys. And women are wired to be highly sexual, have multiple orgasms. But because of culture, we are all messed up. The males in our culture have to hide and suppress their libido and pretend like they don't look at every single moving part of anybody, really. And we have to pretend that we're not sexual beings and only bad girls are sexual. So if we understood that biology has wired us, males and females, to be highly sexual, highly sexual, and not necessarily monogamous, then we will just take a chill pill and relax and perhaps talk about sex differently and stop having such, suppression around it, and therefore remove the stigma around it, and therefore have honest conversations, and then maybe we won't be lying about it.
Exactly. So that's exactly it. We don't understand. So we're all messed up. It's not just whatever your gender is. None of us got great messages about sex. So like I love when you talk about women. Like when we're talking about it right now, this is Dr. Shefali, biology, versus culture. Meaning like women were the nurturers, we're the caretakers, right? And men are like. I love that in your book you have what did I have here? Just the quote about men. You get upset if your partner looks at a woman walking past you, in a heterosexual, or looks at anyone walking past you. That's what we're talking about. They can't, it's a drive. and much better that. So what do we do? So we shouldn't get mad. We should have empathy, right, towards our
Well, they've done so many studies on males' visual perception and acuity, and males have higher visual stimulation than females because biology has primed them to hunt, so that the onus of proliferation of the genes is carried out. So they've wired the body. We are wired to lactate, to give birth, we're different. So we're getting all upset because they're looking, right? Their head is almost going to come unscrewed because they're like looking so much, and then they have to wear their shades. But we have to understand that part of that is their wiring. And I'm a woman. All my partners look. And at times I'm like, hello, hello. Like,
right.
can
Hi,
you,
look
like,
at me.
yeah,
Right.
can you, hello, hello. But I also understand not to take it personally, even though culture has taught us to take it personally. So culture has messed us up because culture is like, you're mine, your eyeballs belong to me, and your neck and everything belongs to me. So don't look anywhere else. But if we do that, we're going to run a losing battle and we're going to make it a war. And if you ask any guy, they're like, I just look like it's not a big deal. But for women, because we don't understand, and we're talking about just cisgendered heterosexual relationships and identities, we don't understand the male experience.
Right. So in understanding that, so now that we understand it, let's say be like, okay, I'll have more compassion if they have this drive that we don't have. But I know you talk about a lot of this in your book. Some people are asking, it's called a radical awakening. What would be the first step then? What do we do? Because if I'm like, okay, I won't get that upset that he wants sex more than I do, or that he's looking at women, or even that I won't say he cheated because that's a break of trust. But let's just say, how do we do this? How did you start? I mean, because you were married. This book is about your own awakening, where you started to discover your sexuality that had been repressed, like all of us. I started on the same journey. I was faking orgasms, and sex was not great. And I was like, what is all this talking about sex? It's really not that great. So
right, and also that, right? Many females don't experience orgasms. We think there's something wrong with us. We don't know that the vagina is very hard to arouse because babies come out of it. It's meant to be unstimulated because otherwise we die in childbirth. But we have a clitoris, we have other organs, there is pleasure in the vagina, but it takes a long time. So we are not taught all of this. So we think something's wrong with us. So we don't engage in sexuality the way we should. So in terms of the first step it's really, sexuality is part of the bigger piece of it, which is really how authentic are you ready to be? How real are you ready to be with yourself? Sexuality is one component of your capacity to love yourself, right? To celebrate yourself. So it's, how do you begin celebrating yourself? Well, it's at some point in your life deciding that this is your life, this is your journey, this is your discovery. Are you going to claim it, or are you going to just wait in the back of the line waiting for permission? It's really that decision. Am I going to enjoy this body and experiment and play and have fun, or am I going to just be a slave and a puppet to my traditions and my culture? So it's a very idiosyncratic choice you have to make.
Well, you talk about this choice too in your book. You say, like, when you first discovered your sexuality, you talk about how women are so disconnected from their vaginas, and you suggest that women become more connected. And I want to know, when you discovered your own sexuality through your awakening after being married for 20 plus years, what did that look like for you after all these years saying, oh, I am good? Because I scream that every day from the rooftops, like, please look at your vagina, take out a mirror, it's beautiful, like, we're here because of this on the planet, we give birth, it's amazing. So what would it look like for you? What did it look like for you to be like, wow, I got to get connected, I'm so disconnected?
Right. So as I began to discover that I needed to get more connected, I also began to blossom in other areas. Other areas fed the sexual area, and sexual area fed other areas, where you begin to realize that you need to shed yourself from inhibition, from self-doubt, self-shame, self-excoriation. We women are so cruel to ourselves. We don't accept our bodies. It really begins at that very deep. The reason we're not sexual, not only because we've been told it's bad, but also because inherently we don't accept our bodies because we have cellulite or we don't look perfect. So part of becoming sexual is part of becoming self-accepting and loving your body. So as I began to improve in one area, I improved in other areas. And it's just about, for me, it was about being tired of living in fear, of living in doubt of my power and my potential, and saying no more. And once you say no more and you don't care about the opinion of others, you do blossom forth in all areas. You become uninhibited. You don't care about living in a box.
So you consciously started to make those decisions, like I'm not going to care what other people think about my body or what people expect of me.
Yes,
It's
yes,
true.
yes. And as you do it, you attract people who are also in celebration of you. You begin to attract people who are open and different.
Yes.
So you begin to roam around in a new crowd now. You leave the old crowd behind.
Well, I love that you also talked about intentional community, that it was an intentional community for you that made the difference.
Well, I think the way to create a new tomorrow in this very sick world we live in is to begin to intentionally create deliberate communities. And so I created an intentional community. I call it Evolve. People come every year. And I could then connect and synergize with people who are more open-minded and more free, you know. By the way, I'm doing a free webinar tomorrow on relationships if your people want to come.
Okay, where they can find you at Dr. Shefali on Instagram.
Yes, at Dr. Shefali, and it's a free webinar on relationships. I just realized.
Oh, amazing. I love it. This is so perfect for that. So also, we talk about disconnected from your vaginas. What about this? And we can take some questions too. We'll have a few minutes to take questions. But this was another pull quote from you talk about, we fall under the illusion that a man's attention means he cares. He bought us flowers. He texted us. He took us to dinner. So what do we really need to know about men's attention, intentions versus their attention? Like, what does it all mean? Intentions, their attention? Like, you say, this is your quote, we claim to be hoodwinked by the men in our lives, but we are the naive ones.
Right, because we are expecting something that they cannot deliver, and then we're upset with them because they didn't deliver. You know, most males are wired very differently, and they're culturally conditioned very differently. They are not conditioned to be in their feelings or in their heart, and biologically either. Men are taught to go, hunt, attack, predate, get the prey home. And culture endorses that. So here we are, females, trying to be in this monogamous, cozy, you know, do you understand me? Let's watch a rom-com and talk energy. And males are not wired for that.
Right.
So we set ourselves up to be disappointed. I'm not putting all men down. I'm just saying, on the whole, we females need to get our connection needs met by other females. You know, don't put this on the guy.
Right.
However, having said that, there are men who are more evolved and more conscious, but good luck finding them.
I was going to say, where do we find them? Like, Dr. Shefali, this is such a good point, because I was just going to ask you, I found that the men that I know that are the most in touch, maybe more comfortable with their emotions, are men who are in recovery. They're in a 12-step program. Maybe they've had like some kind of crisis in their life, but have you found good sources or good places where you find those men?
I'd be a freaking multi-bazillionaire, okay? I would be the answer to all women's problems. I'm going to look though, and I'm going to be that one who can be the dater. I'm going to create a dating app but I right now only have 2 men, okay? So it's there. I'm going to collect them. No, I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. I was like, I do. No, I date many.
No, I have 2 men at least. But listen to me. When you create
an intent, what I'm talking about. So do I. Like, let's talk about this. And I'm open with them. Like, I'm open. But I've never. Yeah, I don't think.
I have a conscious man right here, Gabriel. He may not love the women, but he's right here. Gabriel's my friend.
He's a conscious man.
Gabriel, you're a conscious man, but you don't like us women. If you liked us, I'd be taking you, Gabriel. My dear friend. But yeah, so the way you find conscious men is you have to create the community. And I always tell women, if you want to find a conscious man, he will come to Evolve, which is my conference.
Okay.
Because it's so wherever there are hubs of consciousness, You have to kind of go there and hope that somebody looks cute and is available and ready and open. But you can't be looking for conscious men on Bumble necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't want Bumble to come after me. Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, but also it's true because then you can become more discerning. Like once you start on your own path and your own journey, like your radical awakening, and in your book you talk a lot about this. I think that you probably heard there's a lot of awakenings from reading your book. Other awakenings from your awakening is how it works. But once you start to open your eyes and you're on the path, the same kind of people won't be attractive to you anymore as a thing. Like you literally, it is the manifestation or the laws of the universe that you just, they'll knock on your door and they won't be hot. They won't be interesting. You won't be able to date up
There's
with
a
those guys, right?
great question by Kristen here, and then I'm going to come back
Yes,
to you.
I
She
just
says,
saw
what
that.
do you mean finding emotional needs in women? Isn't that letting men off the hook for taking responsibility and being emotionally mature? I love it, Kristen.
Yeah.
Kristen, here's the thing. We speak different languages, males and females. And because of culture, because of biology. Now, if you find that man who can be emotionally mature, bravo, fabulous. But if he's not, you can't judge him because culture hasn't conditioned him to, and
Right.
his biology doesn't make him that. So all I'm saying is, how do women reduce their suffering? Do they go after a rock that doesn't give water? Or do they understand that rocks don't give water? And we should get our main emotional needs met by females. Having said that, you can look for that one emotionally mature, superior guy, and bravo to you. But he's 1 in 100. Okay, he's
He
one
is.
in 100. It's hard to find an awakened, conscious, emotionally articulate, masculine plus feminine man. It's hard
Right.
because that man, like Emily said, has to be somebody who's done the work,
Right.
because culture doesn't raise this man. So the
No.
man who's in recovery, or the man who's gone through hell and now has realized he needs to meditate and be spiritual, there are men, but it's few and far between because culture doesn't raise men to do that.
Right. Well, and it is true, like you're saying, that women, we need to find it. Like my girlfriends are my everything. My women friends, like they do fill me up. And the more I've evolved, I realize like I really don't need that. Like at the end of the day, I don't need men for that much, right? Like don't need their, personally where I'm at, I don't need money or the sperm or anything, right? I mean, I'm like, where I want a companion, someone who can be there a few times a week. Like it's, and I think even, and I understand people want kids, it's a different thing, but you should still keep finding ways to fill yourself up from others. There's never one person that does it all.
So somebody just wrote, not very demanding, are you, Dr. Shefali? It's not about being demanding. It's about being realistic about who I'm playing with. If you know who the specimen is, you're not going to keep suffering. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be with the most mature, emotionally connected human being, but you don't wait for that person and you don't beg them to be something they're not. Like what Emily's saying,
You can't beg them.
you keep connecting with who's in front of you and keep connecting with yourself. And if you need them for sex, go ahead, but don't push them to be something they're not. That's all I'm saying.
Don't, exactly. We have to understand that people, they're not going to change unless they want to change. And I always say it's not going to be on your watch if you're starting right now and you're trying to get somebody. Like it's going to take a long time. So,
Right. And also, Emily, haven't you met so many women who are in their 40s or 50s who are upset with their men because they're not emotional? And if you ask them, well, was he emotional when you married him? And they're like, no. So what do we expect? What were we thinking? I know what we were thinking. We had the fantasy that I'll change him. One day he'll be different. Life will be different in the future. But that was all our responsibility. And then we're resentful because they didn't change. They just stayed the same young boy that we married.
well, exactly. They stay the same and we don't. So that's what your book really brings light to, is that
This is the book.
right. This is in the book, you guys. A Radical Awakening. You got to check out Dr. Shefali's book and her free webinar tomorrow. Is that we just don't see that we have all these expectations that are literally like, yeah, trying to get water from a stone, or like it's not going to happen. And how do you switch that? But sometimes couples grow apart too, and honoring that and not measuring monogamy or marriage, the success of a marriage on longevity, right? It's about sometimes you grow apart. And that's okay too, right? I mean, how much freedom do you have since your divorce, let's say? You're on a mission not to make divorce a
So
dirty
free.
word.
Oh my God, so free. I'll never give it up again in my life. Because, the marital contract comes unconsciously with a lot of tentacles. You have to marry your mother-in-law and you have to take care of the family, and nothing wrong with it. Just be aware that it has tentacles.
Yes.
So I did that for 25 years, but now I'm not doing it, and
No.
it's fabulous.
Now you're spreading the wisdom. Let's take one question. Veronica says, what happens if sex brings your emotion? I think she might be talking about, they often say that sex brings out the emotion in men, or even women. What about the emotion that comes from those hormones?
Right. Women need to feel connected to have sex. Men have sex to feel connected. So yeah, so you can try. Listen, all I'm saying, we're both saying here, is understand who the male is and understand who the female is. We females are wired to connect. We are wired to nurture. We're wired to nest. They are wired to actually disconnect because they got to go kill the lion and then come home and play with the babies and be okay. So they're wired to leave the family and go out. And we don't like that. But part of it is their wiring. They are brutally compartmentalized men. And in a way, not as brilliantly interconnected as we are. But they have their strengths, we have our strengths. Now it's, can you connect with somebody in an aligned way that is fulfilling? That's the challenge. And also be open and flexible, that you could align with somebody in your 20s and not align with somebody in your 40s. And that's okay.
It's all okay. You're right. Thank you, Dr. Shefali. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Come for my free webinar tomorrow on relationships. It's on my page.
Check it out. It's on her page, Dr. Shefali, her free webinar, her book, and then our podcast is coming out Friday. Thank you so much.
Yes, and this is the book, A Radical Awakening. Thank you, Emily. You're the best.
Thank you. You too. Have a good day. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. More soon. Send your questions.